Kazi stood at the edge of the river, staring into the dark water. Her heart beat heavily, knowing that tonight something had to happen. The village lay still, the usual hum of life quiet in the cool night air. Yet, inside her, there was a storm brewing, unseen, untamed. Her thoughts were tangled in confusion, but a deep sadness clung to her, heavier than ever. Without warning, she stepped forward, one foot in the water, then the other, until the river swallowed her whole. There was no hesitation, no final glance. She simply vanished beneath the surface, her figure consumed by the dark currents. The village, just moments before at peace, erupted in chaos. People screamed her name, rushing to the riverbank. But the water had taken her. No sign, no trace, not even a ripple. The elders gathered, their faces grim as they exchanged fearful glances. What madness drove her to this? They whispered, but their voices trembled with uncertainty. Was it the river's call or something darker? The mystery spread like wildfire. No one knew why Kazi had disappeared, but the whispers of the river's secret began to stir. As night settled over the village, the elders gathered in secret. They spoke in hushed tones of ancient stories, tales of a river that could give life or take it. Those who enter the river may not return the same, one murmured. Some are lost forever. Some are changed, cursed, or marked by the river's power. The air grew thick with unease, and a new fear began to rise. Was Kazi taken by the river's spirit? Or had she simply vanished, a sacrifice to the gods for some unknown wrong? The mystery deepened. Kazi had vanished, but the village was restless. There were no answers, only more questions. Was it the river, or something more sinister? Days passed and hope seemed to fade. Then, one morning, Kazi returned. Her figure appeared at the village's edge, walking slowly, silently. She did not speak to anyone. Her once bright eyes were hollow, cold. There was an energy about her, something that didn't belong, something dark. People avoided her gaze, their hearts uneasy in her presence. No one dared to approach. Her silence unsettled everyone. Kazi's once vibrant spirit was gone, replaced by something different. Only Nuru, Kazi's closest friend, dared to speak to her, but her words were met with cryptic mutterings. "The river took me," Kazi said, her voice distant. "It gave me something. It took my heart." But the words meant nothing. They only added to the confusion, the fear. There was something powerful inside her, but no one could understand it. The village's land began to change too. Crops withered overnight, animals fell sick, and the children woke screaming from nightmares, murmuring of shadowy figures and dark shapes in the corners of their dreams. Something was wrong. And Kazi seemed to be at the heart of it all. As the days passed, whispers grew louder. Kazi brought this curse, they said. She was taken by the river, and it returned her with something evil. Fear spread faster than the sickness itself. But Nuru could not stand idle. She could not watch her friend, the one she grew up with, destroy everything. She made up her mind. She would find the truth. What had happened to Kazi in the river? What curse had she brought back? If there was a way to stop it, she would find it. She gathered her courage. The village was in danger, and the answers lay with Kazi and the river. Nuru was determined to uncover the truth, and to save them all. Omini once a joyful soul, Kazi now walked in silence, her once bright eyes dimmed, her laughter a memory that no longer echoed in the village. Her family and the villagers felt the change, though they could not fully understand it. There was something about her, an unspoken weight she carried that made her seem as if she no longer belonged. Nuru, her childhood friend, could see it most clearly. She watched Kazi closely, feeling a growing unease with each passing day. Kazi's actions grew stranger. She wandered the village, her gaze far away, her movements slow and deliberate, like someone caught between two worlds. At times, Nuru thought, she saw a flicker of the old Kazi, but it was always gone before she could reach out to it. Fear gnawed at Nuru's heart, for she knew something terrible had happened to her friend in the river. The villagers, desperate for answers, turned to Jenga, the elder whose wisdom was sought in times of mystery. They gathered around him, hoping he would explain the strange happenings that surrounded Kazi. But Jenga spoke only in riddles. "The river is old," he said, "older than any of us. It is a force beyond our understanding. Those who approach it, with respect, find life, but those who disturb it, the river demands payment." His words offered no comfort, only more questions. He would say no more, leaving the villagers in uncertainty. They knew the river had been a life-giver, but now it seemed a dangerous force, something that could neither be ignored nor trusted. Kazi's behavior grew increasingly unsettling. She moved like someone not quite present, as though she were walking in a dream. Her once familiar voice, full of warmth and laughter, was now replaced with cold, cryptic words. "I have seen the river's face," she would whisper, "and it is both a mother and a monster." No one knew what she meant, but the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Nuru could not stay silent. She knew something had changed in Kazi, something linked to the river. With determination, Nuru approached her friend. "What happened to you, Kazi?" she asked, her voice shaking with worry. Kazi said nothing, only pointing to her swollen belly. The sight of it chilled Nuru to her core. It was growing too fast, unnaturally fast. What could it mean? The villagers began to murmur. They spoke in hushed tones, whispering that Kazi had brought a curse back from the river. No one dared speak the truth out loud, but the fear spread like wildfire. The crops began to fail. The animals grew sick and weak. The children, once carefree, woke from nightmares, their eyes filled with terror as they spoke of shadowy figures moving in the dark. Some whispered that Kazi's return was the cause. She was taken by the river, they said. It gave her something we cannot understand, something that brings death. Others believed it was a punishment from the gods, that Kazi had somehow angered the spirits of the land. Nuru could not let this continue. She had to find the truth, not only for Kazi but for the village. She searched for answers, knowing that the river held the key. She found herself at the feet of the elders once more, but this time she would not let Jenga speak in riddles. "Tell me everything," she demanded. "What is the river's secret? What has it done to Kazi?" Jenga sighed, his old eyes filled with sorrow. "The river demands balance," he said slowly. "It gives life, but it can also take it away. The spirit of the river is both a protector and a punisher. And now, Kazi has returned with something the river gave her, a force that could either save or destroy." As the days passed, the village struggled under the weight of the river's curse. The crops died. The sickness spread. People began to fear the river itself. Some believed it had claimed Kazi's soul, while others feared it might claim the whole village. Whispers turned to fears, and fears to panic. Nuru refused to give in to fear. She pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. She met with Jenga again, and together, they began to piece together the fragments of what had happened. The river's spirit, Jenga explained, demanded balance. Kazi's return was no simple return. The river had given her something dark and powerful. A force that was now growing inside her. The truth was becoming clearer, but it was more terrifying than they had imagined. The river had not just claimed Kazi's life, it had claimed her soul. And now, that power threatened to spill over into the village. The river's shadow hung over them all, a reminder that no one, not even Kazi, could escape the price of disturbing its balance. Nuru's resolve hardened. She would not allow this force to destroy her village, her people, or her friend. She knew the battle ahead would not be easy, but it was one she would fight to the end. The river had given something, but it had also taken, and it was time to make things right. Whispers began to spread through the village, quiet but sharp, like the first crack of thunder before the storm. The people spoke in hushed voices, their eyes darting nervously toward Kazi. "She carries a curse," they murmured. "A spirit from the river has claimed her." Some feared it was the wrath of the river itself. Others whispered of angry spirits, demanding payment for what had been taken. No one knew the full truth, but the air felt thick with fear. The villagers, once so close to Kazi, now avoided her. They kept their distance, speaking only in low tones when they had to pass by. But Nuru, her closest friend, refused to abandon her. She stayed near Kazi, her worry growing with each passing day. "I will not leave you," she would say. "Whatever has happened, we will face it together." Meanwhile, strange things began to unfold. People fell ill with no warning. The once healthy animals began to die in strange numbers. Crops that had once flourished with the season now withered and died overnight. The village felt as though it were cursed, its land and people bound in a dark grip, all tied to Kazi's return from the river. Then came the river. Once calm and clear, it began to run red, its waters swirling in ominous currents. The villagers stood in shock as the red water flowed toward the land, bringing with it an even deeper fear. "It is the river's wrath," they said. "It is angry with us. It wants something." Some believed it was a sign of doom, a warning that the worst was yet to come. Kazi's belly began to swell at an unnatural pace. It grew far too quickly, far too large, sending ripples of fear through the village. The villagers muttered behind their hands, eyes wide with dread. "What does this mean?" they asked. "This is no ordinary child. This is the river's child, a curse in human form." The truth was too terrible to say aloud, but it haunted everyone's thoughts. Kazi herself seemed distant, no longer the woman who had once laughed with them, who had once walked among them. Her eyes, once full of warmth, were now cold and empty. She no longer spoke, except for the occasional cryptic word. The villagers avoided her gaze, their hearts heavy with unease. Only Nuru stayed close, her worry deepening. She could feel the weight of the curse, the strange power that seemed to grow inside Kazi. It was not Kazi who had returned, something else had come with her. Desperate for answers, Nuru went to Jenga, the elder whose knowledge of the past was sought by all. She asked him to explain what had happened, to tell her what the river had done to Kazi. Jenga's answer was slow, filled with ancient wisdom. "The river has a guardian spirit," he said. "It is old, older than time itself. It punishes those who disturb its waters. It demands a price. Kazi's child, what she carries now, may be the price that the river has claimed." Nuru's heart sank as she listened. The spirit of the river had claimed her friend, and with it, the village's fate. Kazi, whose voice had grown faint, finally spoke of her dreams. She spoke of the monstrous figure that rose from the depths of the river, a creature of shadow and fury. It spoke to her, claiming that the child she carried would bring destruction, that the balance of the world itself would be undone. "It will come," Kazi whispered. "The monster will rise, and the world will fall." Nuru's blood ran cold at the words, but she held on to her determination. She would not let Kazi suffer alone. With the weight of the village's fate on her shoulders, Nuru sought a way to stop the curse. She turned to the ancient scrolls, searching for clues in the forgotten stories of their ancestors. She found one tale that stood out, a tale of the river's power. It spoke of how, when those who entered the river returned, they carried a curse that passed down to their unborn children. Kazi's child, Nuru realized, was the key to the curse that had taken root in the village, but as the days passed, the curse seemed unstoppable. Kazi's power grew stronger, and the land seemed to wither under its influence. The once vibrant village now felt as if it were suffocating, trapped under a shadow that would not lift. Nuru could feel the strength of the curse closing in, its weight pressing down on the people. She knew that unless she found a way to break it, the village would not survive. The river had claimed Kazi, and now it threatened to claim them all. With every passing day, the darkness deepened, and Nuru's fear turned to resolve. She could no longer wait for the answers to come. She would fight the river's spirit, challenge its power, and find a way to save Kazi and the village before it was too late. The battle was just beginning, and Nuru was determined to face it head-on. The river raged, its waters swelling higher and higher, threatening to swallow the village whole. The villagers gathered, their faces filled with fear as the river surged, flooding parts of their land. The curse had grown stronger, and the villagers knew that the river's fury was directed at them. "The river is angry," they cried. "It wants something from us." The once calm waters had turned into a storm, and no one knew if they could survive what was coming next. Kazi's belly, too, had grown. It had swollen beyond reason, far too large for her fragile frame. The villagers stared in horror. Whatever was inside her, they feared, was more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. "What does she carry?" they whispered. "What dark thing is growing inside her?" The fear was palpable, and every day the sight of Kazi only deepened the dread that had taken root in the hearts of the people. The air around Kazi grew thick with malevolent energy. Her once warm presence had turned cold and distant. The villagers could feel the evil radiating from her, a dark force that made their skin crawl. "She is not the Kazi we knew," they said. "This is something else, something that is not of this world." Kazi no longer smiled. Her eyes, once full of life, were now empty, as though a great weight pressed upon her soul. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Nuru confronted Kazi. Her heart was heavy with worry, but she knew she had to know the truth. "Tell me, Kazi," Nuru cried. "What did the river do to you? What is inside you?" Kazi's voice was faint, but there was sorrow in her words. "The river didn't just take me," she whispered. "It took my life. It gave me a choice, to return with something that could either save or destroy the village. I didn't choose this. I never chose it." Nuru's heart sank. What did the river give you?" Kazi's eyes, though clouded with fear, locked onto Nuru's. "The guardian of the river lives inside me now," she said softly. "I carry its power. The child I bear is not just a child. It is a force, a spirit that could change everything." Nuru stepped back, her mind racing. "But you can't control it?" Kazi's face was filled with sorrow. "No, I can't. The river's force is too powerful to resist. I am trapped, Nuru, and the village will face the consequences of my return." Nuru's determination flared. She could not allow this curse to consume her friend or the village. She had to end it, once and for all. "I will stop it," she said firmly. "I will confront the river. If the guardian lives inside you, then I will call it out. I will make it release you." With her resolve set, Nuru approached the river's edge. Her heart was filled with both fear and purpose. "River," she cried, her voice strong, "I demand the return of Kazi's soul. Free her from your curse. I call to you." The river answered with fury. The waters churned, rising in great waves. The wind howled and the storm erupted. The Aiyao, guardian spirit of the river, had heard her call, and it responded with unrelenting violence. Waves crashed, pulling at Nuru's feet as the river's rage rose against her. But Nuru stood firm. "I will not back down," she shouted. "Release her!" Suddenly, just as the river seemed ready to pull Kazi back into its depths, a great sound echoed. Kazi's body trembled as she gave birth. From her, a shadowy creature emerged, dark, monstrous, and filled with the power of the river. Its form twisted and writhed, a creature born of darkness and water. It was the spirit of the river itself, unleashed upon the world. The creature surged through the village, a terrifying force of destruction. It tore through homes and crops, its power too great to be stopped. The villagers screamed in terror. "Run! Run for your lives!" they cried. But some stood frozen, unsure whether to fight or flee. They had never seen anything so horrifying. In the chaos, the villagers faced a choice. They could fight the creature, risking everything to protect their home, or they could flee, hoping to survive another day. The tension hung thick in the air. "What should we do?" one villager asked. "Fight or run?" The villagers were torn. Some made their decision quickly, charging toward the creature with whatever they could find to defend themselves. Others turned and fled, hoping the creature would spare them. But the air was thick with uncertainty. Only one thing was clear. The village was forever changed. The choice was now in their hands, fight or flee. But whatever happened, they would never forget the creature that was born from the river's curse. The villagers, armed with whatever they could find, gathered. Together, their hearts pounded as they faced the monstrous creature. "We fight for our homes! We fight for our future!" they shouted, their voices uniting in determination. The creature, born of the river's curse, loomed before them, a shadowy force of destruction. With every strike, they tried to push it back, their hands trembling, but their resolve firm. But it was a fierce battle. The creature fought back with great power, swiping at the villagers with claws that seemed to tear the earth itself. It was a battle like no other, testing the strength of every villager. They fought not just for survival, but for their land, their lives, their very souls. But just as hope seemed lost, the creature stopped. With a roar that shook the ground, it turned and fled, disappearing into the river's dark depths. Silence fell over the village, broken only by the ragged breaths of the villagers who had barely survived. They stood there, unsure of what had just happened. "What now?" some whispered, while others just sank to their knees in exhaustion. The river once again had swallowed the creature whole. As the villagers gathered their strength, they found Kazi's lifeless body lying by the river's edge. Her eyes were closed, peaceful for the first time in ages. The evil that had once clung to her had lifted. She was free, and the curse that had bound her seemed to have broken. There was no more shadow in her, no more dark presence. The villagers could finally breathe, but the relief was short-lived. The village had been saved, but the river, still calm and dangerous, remained a mystery. Its power was not truly gone. It was simply waiting, lurking, ready to rise again. No one could shake the feeling that the river's darkness was still there, hidden beneath the surface, biding its time. Nuru stepped forward, her heart heavy but resolute. "I will protect this village," she declared, her voice steady. "I will guard against whatever the river might send next. We will not fall prey to its dark power again." The villagers, though tired and scarred, looked at her with gratitude and awe. They knew she was the one who had faced the river's wrath, and lived. Now she would guide them in the days to come. Life slowly returned to normal, though it was never quite the same. The crops began to grow again, and the sick animals regained their strength. The village began to rebuild, but each person carried the scars of the battle, both visible and unseen. The river, however, was a shadow that still loomed over them all. Though the village seemed peaceful, there was a lingering mystery in the river. Its calm surface hid the unknown, and the villagers knew better than to take its power for granted. The river had taught them a harsh lesson, one they would not forget. The once carefree villagers now viewed the river with a mixture of awe and fear. They knew the river's power could be both a blessing and a curse, a force beyond their understanding. The cost of uncovering its secrets had been high, but they knew they had no choice but to respect it, to live with the knowledge that it could strike again at any moment. As Nuru watched the river flow once more, her heart heavy with the weight of all that had happened, she reflected on the choices made. The village had won, but at what cost? The future was uncertain. Would the river rise again? Would it bring more destruction? Nuru did not know. All she knew was that the battle had been won, but the river's dark powers were still there, waiting for the next moment when they would demand their price. And so, the villagers lived, ever watchful, knowing that the river's secrets would never truly be understood. They would respect its power, for it had shown them both life and death. But in their hearts, they knew the river would always remain a mystery, a force that would continue to shape their lives in ways they could not predict. Nuru stood by the river, watching the water flow. Her thoughts drifted, heavy with the weight of all that had happened. The battle, the loss, the sacrifices, they all rushed back to her in a flood. What was the right choice? She wondered aloud. She thought of Kazi, of the village, and of the terrible curse. Was it worth the cost? Was there another way? The river's waters swirled as if echoing her thoughts. She remembered the stories the elders had told, tales of the river's dual nature. It was both a giver and a taker. At times it nourished the land, bringing life and fertility, but in other moments it could rage with fury, taking everything in its path. Life and death were both woven into its currents. The river could heal, or destroy, depending on how one approached it. The river is both a blessing and a curse, Nuru thought. We cannot escape it no matter how hard we try. The villagers, once carefree and full of joy, now understood the power the river held. They had learned the hard way, through the pain, the suffering, and the destruction. The river teaches us, Nuru whispered softly, remembering the scars they now carried. But at what price? She looked out over the water, feeling the weight of the lesson they had all learned too late. The river had shown them its wrath, but it had also revealed something deeper, something wise. It wasn't just destruction, it was a warning. The power of nature, though dangerous, carried lessons for those willing to listen. Nuru had learned that the river's anger had not just been a punishment, it had been a message. Nature has a voice, she thought. If we listen, we will understand. Now, as the village slowly began to rebuild, Nuru spoke to the villagers. She gathered them around, standing strong and resolute. The river cannot be controlled, she said. We must respect it. It gives and takes, and we are never above it. The villagers nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had learned their lesson, and they knew it was one they must carry with them always. The village began a new chapter, a chapter where respect for nature became the rule. As the crops began to grow again and the animals regained their strength, the villagers walked with a new understanding. They approached the river with caution, not with fear, but with respect. Nuru led the way, reminding them that the river's power was beyond their control. We can try to shape our world, she said, but we cannot control it. Some forces are simply beyond us. As she walked beside the river, Nuru understood something even deeper. Humility is key, she said, her voice quiet but firm. We must never take more than what is given. If we do, the river will take it back, and we will have nothing left. The lesson was clear. To live in peace, to live in harmony with the land, the villagers must learn to respect the forces that governed it. The river doesn't just take, Nuru explained to the villagers. It gives too. But the giving and the taking must be in balance. If we disrespect that balance, the river will turn against us. The villagers listened, their hearts full of understanding. They had learned the most important lesson: balance. The river's power was not something to be feared, but something to be respected. It was not a force to be controlled, but one to be understood. Over time, the villagers came to accept the river's teachings. They gathered at its edge, no longer fearful but understanding. They knew that they must live in harmony with the river and the land around them. We will respect the river, Nuru said, her voice strong. We will live in balance with it, and it will guide us. With the river's lessons in their hearts, the village began to heal. The damage done was not easily forgotten, but the villagers now knew that respect for nature was the key to their survival. They had learned, through great pain, the true power of the river, and they would never take its strength for granted again. Kazi sat by the river, staring at the water, as it flowed with the same force that had once brought life to her village. She remembered the time when the river gave them everything: water for the crops, fish for food, and a steady stream that nourished the land. But now, the river had betrayed her. It had taken more than it had ever given. I trusted it, she whispered, her voice thick with regret. And now it controls me. Her hands shook as she looked at the swelling belly beneath her. She had thought she could walk away, but the river had different plans. The curse had a price, and now she paid it with her very body. The river had promised her life, but it had only delivered destruction. It took my life, Kazi said, turning to Nuru with eyes filled with despair. It promised me something, but it gave me only pain. The burden of the curse was more than Kazi could bear. It was as if the river had stolen her soul and left her to carry its weight. The elders had long warned of nature's power. It gives, but it also takes, they had said. Jenga's words echoed in Nuru's mind. When nature's forces are disturbed, there is a cost. And the river has no mercy. As Kazi's transformation continued, her vulnerability became clear. The river had manipulated her, using her like a tool. I had no choice, Kazi confessed. The river made its demands, and I couldn't refuse. There was no fighting it, no escaping its hold. She was no longer the master of her fate. The river had claimed her as its own. The river controlled everything, Kazi continued, her voice shaking with fear. I was never in charge. I thought I could control it, but it controlled me. The weight of the truth pressed down on Kazi. The once proud and free-spirited woman was now a puppet to the river's will. And the worst part? She could never undo what had been done. In the final battle, Kazi understood the full cost of her betrayal. The river had given her a false choice, and now it had come for its payment. You took everything from me, she cried, her voice full of rage and sorrow. And now I have to face the price. The river's power, like a great flood, had consumed everything in its path, and Kazi, the one who had once trusted it, now had nothing left but the bitter reality of her own fate. Nuru, her heart heavy with determination, knew what had to be done. The river had to be stopped. I will not let you destroy everything we've built, Nuru shouted, standing firm against the river's wrath. She would not let the river's manipulation claim her village, her people, or Kazi. She would fight back, no matter the cost. As the battle intensified, Nuru realized that justice would not come without a sacrifice. We must fight for balance, she said to the villagers, her voice steady, but it comes at a price. The villagers hesitated, but the truth was clear. To restore peace, they would have to give something up. The final battle was fierce. The river's spirit, taking the form of a monstrous creature, surged forward, crashing into the village with all its fury. The villagers, led by Nuru, fought with everything they had. This is the price for disturbing the river's peace, Nuru yelled, rallying them. Together, they stood against the creature, fighting not just for their homes, but for the balance of the land itself. After the creature disappeared back into the river's depths, Kazi's lifeless body was found. Her face was peaceful, free from the curse that had once controlled her. Nuru knelt beside her, a quiet sadness in her heart. She paid the price, Nuru said softly. The village had been saved, but at a heavy cost. The balance had been restored, but not without sacrifice. The villagers, now free from the curse, honored the river. They knew that its power was something they must never take for granted. Nuru spoke to them, her voice strong yet somber. We must remember, the river gives, but it also demands justice when its balance is disturbed. We cannot forget that. The villagers gathered by the river's edge, Nuru reflected on all that had happened. The river has taught us all, she said quietly. We must respect nature's power, honor it, and never take more than what is given. The river will always have its way, and we must learn to live in harmony with it. The lesson had been learned, the cost paid, and the village would forever carry the memory of what the river had given and what it had taken.